Hi there, and welcome to the New York School of Design's Intro to Digital Design. This is Lesson 1. My name is Vidal Sackerly Valencia, and I'm a fashion designer here in New York City. A little bit more about me is that I graduated from the Rhode Island School of Design with a BFA in apparel design, and I have about 6 years of industry experience working within fashion with a range of different companies, from small companies presenting at New York Fashion Week to really small companies sewing everything out of a single studio to working for corporate companies that were developing thousands of garments a month and creating new designs all the time and committing to really large volume orders. Within these 15-minute videos, I aim for you to learn some of the methods, procedures, and techniques utilized by fashion designers within CAD software for digital design purposes. And so you may be wondering what CAD software is, and that's CAD. And CAD stands for Computer Assisted Design. And so within computer-assisted design, that's a very broad term, and really depending on the type of industry you're talking about, it can mean all types of different software. CAD is used by furniture designers, industrial designers, product designers. It's used for 3D modeling, for architects, and of course, as we know for here, it's utilized by fashion designers as well. So within fashion design, there are really 3 core CAD softwares that you need to really try to learn the ins and outs of in order for you to have really great skills, for you to really represent your work well, and for you to be a really invaluable asset to whatever company you're working with in the future. And those 3 CAD softwares are all within the Adobe suite, which you may be slightly familiar with already. And those 3 softwares are Adobe Illustrator, Adobe Photoshop, and Adobe InDesign. Now, each one of these softwares is utilized for a slightly different purpose, and each one has their own sort of personality, if you will. And so we're going to be demonstrating each of these softwares to you, and throughout the course of this course, you will be learning about how to utilize each of these softwares in different ways in order to create really fantastic, strong, and technically sound design work using these digital softwares. So in today's lesson, we're really just going to be taking a tour of each of these 3 softwares, and we're going to begin with Adobe Illustrator. And so within Illustrator, we're going to be focusing on utilizing Illustrator for the most part for creating our technical flats. But to get started, we're going to open up Illustrator, and I already have it open, so you will not see on my screen the intro page, but it will just be basically Illustrator's logo with some technical information about the software. For now, we're just really going to focus on getting started. So you can click any of these presets for predetermined file sizes. So the postcard is going to be postcard size, letter is going to be letter size, and there's all different types of presets you can select. However, I usually just do letter size as I know what size that is. Letter size paper is fairly standard, and I know that whatever I'm working on in my workspace is going to look the way I'm seeing it when it prints out. So once you get to open your file, this is what you will see with Adobe Illustrator. So this white rectangle here is your workspace, and this is where all of your drawings are going to happen. So anywhere that you see white here is technically the page. So if you are drawing on this gray area here and you go to print this, it is not necessarily going to print out on your page. And so to give you a quick tour, you have your drop-down menu up here, which this is where you can save documents. This is where you can make certain modifications. This will all come with time. And then over here on the left, you have your tools. Sometimes if it looks different than what you're seeing on my screen, it may look like this, which is very long and skinny. But I prefer it to be a little more wide like this. It's easier for me to see where everything is. And here are all of your tools. Now, every tool has a purpose. However, some tools have more use in our industry than others. And so it's really going to depend on the project that you're working on. However, just as a quick glance over for each of these tools, you have this arrow, and if you hover over each tool, you'll see that it tells you its name. And so with telling you the name, that's just reference. Also, if you press and hold, you can see that sometimes these tools have extra tools underneath them. That will be expanded upon later in later lessons. However, for now, we'll start up here with this arrow. So this is your selection tool. This is going to select anything within the box you draw. Okay. And then secondly, you'll see there's this tool, which is an arrow that is white, and it is called the direct selection tool. Now, the main difference between these two is that if we draw something here, just like this shape, let's say, if I use this black arrow, it is going to select the whole thing and move it around. Okay? Now, if I use this white arrow, you'll see if I click it, it's actually going to just click on single points within this shape. So everything in Illustrator, in terms of drawing with lines, is made up of a path, which is what we call a line, and a point, which a point are these white little rectangles you see. And so these points are joined together by paths, which is how we create line work. And again, this will be expanded upon a little bit more in later lessons, but it is important just to know for now. So within the other tools, you have the magic wand. So the magic wand is just going to select everything within a range. So we're just going to make a quick little shape. And if I wanted to select this, I would just grab this magic wand tool and tap this shape, and now I've selected it. This can be useful if you have a very busy project or if you have a very busy file. It'll make it easier to just pick one thing. Then we have the lasso tool, which the lasso is one I use a lot, which is basically I can take the tool and just draw around the shape I want to select. And if you imagine that I have another little shape here, if I take this lasso, I can just select this one, which can be really great if you're working with flat sketches and they're all getting kind of close together. It can be easier to separate them like this. So then we have the pen tool. And I would love to introduce you to the pen tool because the pen tool will become your new best friend. And you might think I'm kidding or being funny, but the pen tool makes the fashion world go round, and I promise you that nearly every garment you have ever purchased within the past 20 years has probably been designed with the pen tool. And so the pen tool is basically going to create points, as you can see with the rectangle, and then connect that to another point, which is going to create a path. And so this is how we draw within InDesign. Oh, I'm sorry, within Illustrator. So then the next tool that I will introduce you to is the text tool. The text tool is useful for sure. However, it's mostly going to be for if you're using Illustrator for print media, if you're using Illustrator for developing a portfolio. It's going to be for if you're adding callouts to a tech pack. Fairly straightforward in terms of utilizing it. It's going to place a placeholder text of lorem ipsum. However, you can just start typing here and just say hello. And if you don't like the font, you just click up here with character. And this gives you all of your font modifications, including all of these fonts, as well as the font size. Next, we have the line tool. So the line tool is fairly straightforward. It's just going to create lines. Let's see. One thing to remember is that everything in Illustrator has, if it's a shape or if it's a line, it's going to have what's called a stroke. Now, in this case, the stroke of this shape is the outline. And so you can see here, this is black, and if you hover over it, it says stroke. And here is the fill. So this is the color on the inside. And so we're going to make it blue. And with the stroke, let's make it orange. And here you go. So the stroke can be modified up here to be thicker, to be thinner. There's a lot of modification tools here that we'll get into a little bit later too. So with the line tool, it's basically drawing just a line. So as you can see, if I take this white arrow tool, you can see it's a point connected to another point, which makes a line. The shape tool is going to be how you create basic shapes. You will just begin by clicking the tool. If you hold press this tool, you'll see it can create all types of different shapes. And so I've now changed it to the ellipse tool, which will create circles and ovals. Within each, you can either click and drag to create your custom sized shape. Additionally, if you hold Shift, it will scale it perfectly. So this is a perfect circle. Next tool that we'll take a look at is actually back here, which is the Archer Point tool, which will basically take any of these points you have if you utilize this tool, and it'll allow you to take away or add a curve. Again, this will come in handy a little bit later. So the next tool that I like to introduce is the rotate tool. Personally, I use the rotate tool most actually as what's called the reflect tool. And so this allows you to select, this allows you to select an item and create an axis to reflect it on. Again, we will come back to this all later, just to give you an introduction to what some of these things do. Next, we have the shape builder, and the shape builder is super fun because it is relatively new in terms of being within the software, but it makes your life a lot easier sometimes. And so within these two shapes, if we say we want to make them into one very unique new shape, if we select both, we take the shape builder tool and we just drag it through. We've now created that shape as a brand new shape. The next tool we'll take a look at is the eyedropper. Now, if you've played around in Photoshop ever, then you may be familiar with the eyedropper. The eyedropper will basically allow you to select whatever color you're clicking on. And so in this case, it's selecting the blue. Over here, it's selecting the red. If I were to pick this shape here, it is, and then if I take the eyedropper tool and go over to this red shape, it's going to turn completely red. And so the eyedropper tool will copy the stroke and the fill of each of whatever it is selecting. The last few tools we'll take a look at are the Artboard tool. So like I said, this whole workspace is called your Artboard. And if you're working and you're drawing and you're running out of space, you can click the Artboard tool. And if you just go right up here and click this plus sign, it'll say New Artboard. When you click a new artboard, it's going to create one right next to it. If you don't like where that is, you can move it around if you want, just by clicking the Artboard tool and pushing it up and down. However, if you just need a new page to work on, clicking the Artboard tool will definitely be the easiest way to do that. Then lastly, we have the hand tool. This is basically what I default one of my Wacom pen tools to, as it just makes it easy to navigate around. If you are using the hand tool and you click, you're basically just going to be moving your workspace around, which is going to make it easier for you to navigate things. And then lastly is we have the zoom tool, this little magnifying glass, and within that, it's just going to zoom wherever you're clicking. So if you want to take a look at something closer in here, you can just click that. Pretty much you can utilize keyboard shortcuts for this as well. However, if you want to use the tool, that's totally fine too. So that is basically every tool in a nutshell that you'll be utilizing for Adobe Illustrator.